All right. Well, welcome everybody to our first episode of the Latinos Unidos Spanglish podcast. Bienvenidos. I'm very excited to have you all here today, watching us on our very first episode airing on May Day, which is also the founding of Latinos Unidos. So thank you all for coming on and tuning in. I would love to introduce my first two guests here today on the Spanglish Latinos Unidos podcast. Hoy tenemos Alyssa Cortes and Yesenia
Moya.
Moya.
Garay.
Oh, disculpa. See, I'm still figuring it. I always refer to you as Yesenia, the dope ass activist rapper, but I guess that will work as well. So ladies, I'm very excited to have you both on. This episode, I decided to call it She Se Puede, porque los tres somos latinas, activistas, involucrado en la comunidad. And I think I really respect you both because I feel we may have different approaches, but we're all doing it for the same reason. And that's because we really care, no matter how draining it gets, no matter how hard it can be or traumatizing in the last 4 years. It's really rewarding for folks who want to help and improve their community. And I'm just so grateful to have you both on. So I first want to introduce our guest on screen, Alyssa. She's halfway vaccinated, so she couldn't join us yet, but I will have her back. So Alyssa Cortes, please tell us more about yourself and your work in the community, briefly to introduce you to our guest.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Jessica, and hi, Yesenia. Like Jessica said, my name is Alyssa Cortes. Mi nombre es Alyssa Cortes. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have been in the community as a community organizer for the past 5 years, and I still consider myself a community organizer, although my title has changed throughout the years and evolved. And I'm now a program associate for an LGBTQ civil rights organization called Silver State Equality, where we focus on building power as a community and also ensuring that our legislators are accountable to us and ensure that LGBTQ issues are at the forefront of their minds, especially right now during the 81st legislative session. So thank you so much for having me. And that's just a little bit about myself. But y'all will get to know me better as we have this conversation today.
Hell yeah, we will. All right. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And Yesenia, please tell us about the dope ass work that you're doing right now. Because I know, like me, you transition, you work on a lot of issues, and sometimes I think spread yourself a little thin, homegirl. But please tell us about what you're up to these days.
Okay. Muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Yesenia Moya. Yo soy nacida en Chihuahua. I'm from Chihuahua, Mexico. And I came here when I was 3 years old with my parents. I grew up undocumented. And growing up undocumented in Nebraska was probably like one of the hardest things and probably most traumatizing things in my life. But when I got my U.S. citizenship in 2016, I was like, y'all messed up. Like, this is it. I'm not going to shut up. And I haven't shut up since. And I remember during the ceremony, they're like, does anybody want to speak? And I was like, yes, I want to say something. And I was going to like fuck shit up. I was going to say something like all the way through. But all I could do was cry and say, you need to vote. That's it. Because Donald Trump was just about to like win. And he did win. But I became a U.S. citizen like the month before the election.
Wow.
And so since then, I've been fighting for people to vote and all kinds of issues up and down, like that all are intersectional y que a todos necesitamos ayudarnos. I do a lot of work with empowering communities and mutual aid and education, political work.
Yeah, that's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing. Yo creo que es muy importante anotar cómo sentimos cuando sabíamos que iba a ganar Donald Trump, ¿verdad? I think a lot of people, they didn't realize until years later when things were already literally on fire. But I think the feeling was palpable for a lot of, people were laughing, cry liberal tears, when people were at, the election night watch parties for his opponent, Hillary, who got the popular vote. And, while many of us were not enthused for her at that point in her career, it still would have been historic, having the first female president. And I think a lot of us, when we realized what truly was happening, we just broke down because we knew what would come. Por muchos que estábamos ahí esa noche de la elección, había tanto miedo, tanto tristeza, como si no había esperanza con lo que iba a pasar, So los dos me pueden decir un poco más de cómo sentían esa noche y desde entonces, cómo sientes de todo lo que ha pasado.
Alyssa?
Sure, I can go first. Pues yo estuve muy triste y con mucho miedo porque tengo familia que todavía no tiene papeles y están trabajando, ¿cómo se dice en español? Como abajo de la mesa, cuando no tienes
Por
papeles.
abajo del agua.
Yeah,
A chambear, ¿no?
Yeah, and I remember that day I was headed to class at Nevada State College, and I just started crying too. I was scared because I knew that coming from a working class family, a mixed status family, just that we were the most marginalized of the marginalized, and including myself as an LGBTQ person, I just knew our community was going to be facing so many challenges at that time. So I was really scared and I was depressed, honestly, just because I knew how awful it was going to be. Because when he says that Mexicans are rapists and criminals and X, Y, all this other bullshit that he was bringing up about, particularly Mexican immigrants, was really fucked up.
That's really what got me into the work that I do. Cuando ganó Donald Trump, mi mundo casi se deshizo. Y ese año fue muy difícil para mí porque yo estaba estudiando en la Universidad de UNLV. También estaba yendo a la iglesia. Tenía Bible study con un grupo, pero con estos gringuitos, y que todos me querían supuestamente y que esto y lo otro. Pero como dijo Alyssa, empezó Donald Trump a decir estas cosas que toda mi vida lo he escuchado. Toda mi vida lo he escuchado, pero ahora la diferencia es que estaba en la televisión y nadie estaba diciendo nada.
Alguien en poder.
Estaba en la televisión y no lo podía escapar. Estaba en todos lugares, en los celulares, enfrente de mí. La gente lo discutía, no decía nada. Y mi grupo de Bible Study de la iglesia no dijo nada, no quería decir nada. Dice, no nos podemos meter en eso. Le digo, pero esto no es político. Este señor va a discriminar, específicamente está empezando con la comunidad latina hispana para crear esta emoción de miedo para que él pueda ganar.
Sí.
Pero ahora ese mensaje yo lo escuché toda mi vida siendo indocumentada. But now, like, having somebody do it in my face on TV, nationally, internationally, I was like, is nobody going to say anything?
Right.
So when I got my U.S. citizenship, I was like, F y'all. I stopped going to Bible study.
Yeah.
I stopped going to church. And I remembered, kind of like Alyssa, I was at UNLV, and I was just so angry. I was just angry and crying. And I want to give a huge shout out to Olmeca, David Barracan, who was an associate professor at UNLV. I think he still is. He lit a fire up under me. He saw a light in me, and he said, "This person, they know what's up." And he was the first person. I'm getting a little emotional, but he was the first person to teach me about Latinx history, at least Mexican history, ever. In the 26 years of my life, not once had I heard anything about Mexican history being here in the United States. And I went to about 13 different schools from kindergarten to high school till I graduated. And not once did they ever mention Mexicans or Mexican Americans, except for being murderers, rapists, and cartel members and, like, drug dealers, you know? And so, like, it was just 2016 changed everything for me. And it was just like, nobody's going to do anything. So I have to do something.
I love that. And, from those moments of crisis, de esos momentos de desesperanza, de miedo, de, lo que sea. Eso a veces es lo que necesitamos para motivar a nuestra comunidad. Hay muchos que sientan que la política no les importa, que no tienen voz, que, ellos están enfocados en sobrevivir. Todos nosotros que tenemos padres inmigrantes, familias que vienen de otros países, México, Venezuela, Cuba, lo que sea, tengo muchos, hasta mi hermana es parte salvadoreña, Salvi, pero nosotros, escapamos, y luchamos y sobresalimos, hacemos todas estas cosas, pero todavía hay muchos que no entienden la importancia de votar. Y yo creo que con este hombre, este maldito, mucha gente se despertieron, they woke up. They realized, oh, wow, this isn't a game. Wow, politics does affect my life. My landlord pays attention to politics. My boss pays attention to politics. All these folks, and it's really hard sometimes, because I think we have gotten to this point, by design with his language and use of a lot of these disgusting tools and reckless rhetoric. We've gotten to a point where it is a moral thing now, and it's very hard to see folks you care about, with some of those attitudes, or at the very least apathy. And I know that's frustrating to y'all, so that's why I want to turn it back to Latinos Unidos, la organización, Latinx United, for the gringos out there, Latinx United. But for my Latinos, I personally, I like saying Latinos. I think it's important, and obviously it's catchy, Latinos Unidos. I started the organization, and it was a long time coming because, like you ladies, I saw a need in my community. I got started in politics when I was 14 years old. My very first mentor, who I would love to have on the podcast at some point, Fernando Romero. Hey. I met him when I was working on the Bill Richardson campaign, and I was 14 years old. Starting off as a volunteer, then I started being in charge of the volunteers, and then they hired me as like a paid intern. I thought I was making great money at $9.25 an hour. I was balling. But all those years of working my way up, starting just like you all, I still consider myself a community organizer. Y eso nunca se va, right? When you do it with your heart, it never goes away. You're a community organizer for life. And you realize the more you do this, the more useful and transferable those skills are. So I started Latinos Unidos in 2018. Yesenia was actually at our kickoff event when we became a caucus, and performed a live piece of poetry.
I forgot.
Yep.
I did.
I had to force her because she was going to flake on me. I want that noted. She was going to flake. But Latinos Unidos launched in 2018. It was wonderful. We supported a local minority business. That's what we're about. For those of you who have never been to any of our events, what we do is on a monthly basis, we would pick a specific issue, topic, and bring it around to la gente. You got to go to the people. You got to make shit accessible to the people. You don't want to baffle them or annoy them or make them feel less than with all this terminology, with all this bullshit. People are trying to survive. Our families, a lot of our families, most single income households in America are led by single mothers. And those mothers, the majority of them have 2 or more jobs. Mm-hmm. So how are we going to guilt people into, oh, well, you didn't volunteer, la, 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 if we're not helping them, have a living wage and live, right. So Latinos Unidos, what I did with that is rather than having these boring parliamentary ass procedure meetings, which I do think have their purpose and are important, what we did was we'd have these mixers every month, different minority-owned business or at a community center, union hall, what have you, but almost always a minority-owned business. And we would have those different topics. We did the Eclipse Theaters, and we did an event called Sick and Tired of Being Sick and Tired about Medicare for All and health services and all that.
I remember that one.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Condoms and lube for all. And every month we did an event at the Sierra Club, which was wonderful with Senator Chris Brooks. And now this is our new phase. So for all of you who've stuck around with us, I just really want to say thank you. Muchas gracias por todos los que han seguido nuestros esfuerzos, han participado, han venido a eventos. Nosotros empezamos este podcast para tener acceso, para que todos puedan participar. Si no pueden venir en persona, yo quiero que a lo menos tienen la oportunidad de escuchar, de saber lo que está pasando en nuestra comunidad, de activistas locales, no de representantes de otro estado, de gente que está que le están pagando para decir esto y lo otro. Ahora estamos hablando con mujeres activistas, some badasses right here, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been with us from our journey from when we started. Thank you to everyone who's participating now. Like and follow us, support us so we can get awesome guests on, so we can continue this work, and so that I can see you all at our in-person meetings we might start later this summer. So with that being said, Alyssa, Yesenia, let's start with Yesenia. Can you tell me a little bit more about your experience with Latinos Unidos, maybe some of the work that you've seen us grow from, and what you think or how you think our next phase is going?
So I completely forgot that I did do that rap for y'all. But that event was fun. Like, the food was really good, and I thought the information was dope. Like I said, I just became a U.S. citizen in 2016. I barely even knew what a presidential was. I've worked my way from a presidential to a governor to a caucus to another presidential, and now the legislative session, and it's like I'm learning as I go. Right. So to me, that was super informative. Like, I got a dive into like the political aspect, and I met a lot of people that day. Like, I networked my ass off, and I mean, I still talk to a few folks, and I remember I think I met Alonso there too. And then that last meeting at CSN, it was always like familia. It wasn't like any other political place. And it was something I tried to recreate too, like in a lot of my spaces. Like what you said, our people, like, we got to meet them where they're at.
Right. Like, we got to feed them. I'm sick of
exactly.
If you're watching this and you're throwing in
no
van
crackers,
with a case of water, and that's all you have
no
there,
fruit,
be ashamed, because
if it's a damn apple and a damn pear.
Wait, I like fruit platters.
But
healthy.
I mean,
but there gotta be sustenance. That's how you bring together immigrant community. It's a cultural thing, right?
Like, I made an event. I was in charge of Latinx Activism Week at UNLV, the very first ever, which is hashtag Yo Soy UNLV now. And they're expanding and doing a lot of great work. And the very first time that I did, I was like, look, we need to spend at least $2,500 on food. I was like, and I'm spending it on arepas, I'm spending on Colombian food, I'm spending on Cuban food, on Puerto Rican food.
We don't all eat
but
tacos.
I need at least 25 to 3,000, like to 3,000 for food. Cause I mean, that's how you bring people in.
Right.
They come in, they're chilling, talking to each other. They see the food. Like, it's a connection, and it's also a connection to, like, home or to experience something different.
Right. And Alyssa, how about you? Like, what are your thoughts on the work Latinos Unidos has done in the past, and kind of what you see for us in the future? Like, what direction you feel we should continue to push in?
Yeah, so I think from the events you've told me about, I think that I was probably not as connected. I think I was I've always been introverted, so I was kind of keeping to myself and to like LGBTQ specific things. But from what I hear, it sounds like awesome things are going on. You mentioned Atenasada. I think that's an amazing idea. I love that idea, especially because so many of our folks are living in intergenerational homes and like have their grandparents. And I know my grandma is thinking of moving in with me because she just is thinking of moving in with me. So, thinking about, how to make these events accessible to the whole family is awesome. I love that. And I think that I would love to see Latinos Unidos, of course, not just continue to grow, but also gain even more political capital, like by starting some sort of Latino caucus within the Nevada State Democratic Party. I think that would be awesome. And to hold our new leadership accountable to
That
the needs of
part.
our community.
Leadership
Yeah.
accountable.
What? I've never
Yeah.
heard of that.
I
What?
mean, right? I mean, they never heard of that. Our leadership has never heard about accountability.
Well,
So,
I'm glad you brought that up, Alyssa.
Yes.
That actually is a perfect transition because leadership should be trusted and constantly engaged with the community. Most leadership has lost touch with their constituents. And it's important these people be removed or reminded of those privileges. Just saying. And that's at the elected official level, not necessarily through the party. But hablando del Partido Demócrata, quiero informar a todos que recientemente tuvimos una elección para el liderazgo del partido local, estatal. So, el Partido Demócrata de Nevada. Y elegimos a Judith Whitmer y otros progresivos a ser líderes del partido y están en medio de organizar y reorganizar todo. Había un poco de drama, pero estamos en un punto ahora donde podemos tener un gran impacto, podemos tener nuestras voces incluidos en toda esta reorganización. So, por eso es importante tener activistas como Alyssa, Yesenia y el trabajo que están haciendo en la comunidad incluido en estas conversaciones, porque cuando es nada más 5 o 6 personas en un cuarto haciendo todas las decisiones, eso no va a representar ni reflejar la comunidad. And that's why I'm very glad to have you both on, because with Latinos Unidos, I think the main point is code switching is not necessary because our community will be members in these spaces. Our community is, you know, that mom who just got off of work, picked up her kids and came. Our community is, those college kids who are pissed off but don't know who to trust, don't know who to talk to, and don't know how to get started. And I think that makes up a lot of young folks, because I see the constant meme sharing, but not really a lot of depth.
You got to start somewhere.
So yeah, exactly. And it's not our job. I think that's an issue too in politics overall, is people feel like they want to be the beacon of morality. No, say it this way. No, do it that way. Oh, bueno, I'm better because I included this, la, 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 la. And then what you're doing is really, you're just, in order to cater to your arrogance and your ego, you're turning off a ton of people. You're excluding a ton of people that would otherwise totally be in with you. So that's why I wanted to bring up a term that has brought a lot of drama lately: Latinx, Latinx, Latin, however you want to say it. And I thought it would be great to discuss with these two women, who work in queer spaces, identify as part of the LGBTQIA plus community. And I really think it's a good thing to cover. Just really quickly, I saw a very funny TikTok recently about a Brasileña coming into a room, and it was a group of Latinas in there, and there was like a Cubana, of course, leading it because they're big ass mouths, I know. And a couple other Latinas, and she's like, hello, because she doesn't speak Spanish, because Brazilians obviously were colonized by the Portuguese, so fala Português. Any hot Brazilian guys out there?
Same.
And I thought it was hilarious because, technically they're not they're Latinos. They're not Hispanic because they weren't colonized. But a lot of people get confused with all of that. So I would love your take, ladies. Do you want to get started, Yesenia, and then I'll toss it over to Alyssa, and then next topic.
So I started identifying as Latinx when I was in school. How it was taught to me, and this is again thanks to shout out to Olmeca, is that this term was brought up by Afro-Latinx and indigenous folks that wanted to be more included, and those were folks that were in academia, so they started using Latinx and the X at the end as a form to identify all and incorporate even more folks into the identity of Latinidad. Because I do want to just reiterate to folks that Latinidad is not a race, and it's not an ethnicity. I don't want to say it's a cultural identity, but it's a conglomerate of cultures and identities. And it's important to highlight like all the difference and all the beauty, like all the beauty within it. Just like you were talking about Brazilians. And like one of the biggest things that I do is just really try to decenter this idea that Latinidad is Mexican identity.
Oh God.
Right? Because when people think of Latinos, they think of nopales, they think of fucking conchas, they think of like, you know, Cesar Chavez, and I'm just like, no, cut that shit. No more, because that's not what it is.
Right.
And so it's just another way to be more inclusive. A lot of folks want to push back against that because they're very, very like in love and very married to that idea of being a Latino in this country,
right?
Because of white supremacy. How do you come to a country that you don't know, and you don't know other folks, and you're being, you know, misidentified, and you're being pushed to the side? I mean, I literally just went to the shopping. Which one? I was at Caesar's Palace or something like that, and I was shopping, and one of the guys, I heard him talking in the background, and he's just like, oh yeah, Latinos on the East Coast are so different from the West Coast. And he's like, they even eat different. They talk different. And I was just like, bro, you know that, like, they're different countries, right? Like, that, like, there's a concentration of different countries and different states. So, like, it's baffling to me, but also explains all the xenophobia and why, like, the fear of immigration. But this whole idea of Latinx, like, folks just need to get over it. It's just another identity. If you don't like it, then don't use Latinx.
And that's the way to put it. I agree, because I think it's important. Inclusivity is important. And that's why I'm glad Alyssa's here as well, because she does work with one of our organizations here locally, Silver State Equality. And Andre, who leads it over there, thank you, Andre, for signing on to our open community letter at the county commission condemning AAPI hate. Silver State Equality stood with us on that. Along with about a dozen other organizations and a ton of student leader activists at UNLV. So thank you all. Alyssa, please tell me more. I mean, I'm sure you have a very educated perspective as someone who's impacted in the community, just like Yesenia, but also just working directly in that space where the lexicon, I think a lot of people, you know, make fun of it. I joke a little, you know, plus, right? But a lot of people, either because of their intimidation, their fear, whatever, usually guys who are scared to admit the certain things, because of machismo, what have you, they go off on it, and I think that's ridiculous. So tell me, from your perspective, you know, your thoughts on the word Latinx.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with everything that Yesenia mentions, and I think that wherever there's room to increase inclusivity, I think that our community should at least have a conversation about it, an honest conversation about why, you know, folks are interested in this inclusivity. Who is on the margin? So I'm always for including as many folks as possible, because even in like indigenous Mexican cultures, my family's indigenous to southern Mexico, to Oaxaca. They're Zapotec, and so in Zapotec culture, there's more than two genders. And so, if let's say you're an indigenous person and you don't even identify with Latinx, some people don't. But if you do, why wouldn't we want to make it inclusive of everyone, people who are even outside the binary? So I am for it, but also I hear from my family members. Even my indigenous family members, they're like, no, I don't like it. I don't like anything outside the binary. They're made uncomfortable by it. But like I said, if there's room to have more voices at the table and to help people feel more comfortable in their own skin, and maybe folks are, you know, gender nonconforming, you know, if there's a lot of gender nonconforming people in our community, the LGBTQ community. So sometimes folks are that's my little brother. Sorry, y'all. He's in the back. He's not listening in over here. He's just laughing at his laptop. But sometimes folks are, you know, they themselves don't feel comfortable identifying within the binary. So just, I don't know. I find it, I don't like to fight about it, because I feel like it denies folks of their of their identity, and I don't like having that conversation. So I identify as Latinx, and I encourage others to do the same as well.
Right.
So that's my take on it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, and I think both of you brought up a good point. Like for me personally, I am not, I'm a straight woman. So I have that privilege right there, right? I don't have to deal with some of those other things. And, I've always identified Latina. I prefer it. I don't necessarily identify Hispanic. And I think it's well, some people do, and and especially folks who are just Mexican, right? They prefer Chicano, Hispanic, and I'm cool with that. But the problem with that, because there are so many Mexicans too in our community locally, people think everyone's a damn Mexican, and we're not all Mexicans. I'm half Mexican, very proudly. So mi mamá es de Durango, orgullosamente, but I'm also Cuban, and I get really mad, that people automatically assume we're all. Well, first of all, I don't even really get assumed until I talk, because people think I'm a white girl, or they see my last name and they're like, "Oh man, we got oh no." But I think both of you brought up a good point. It's not about policing language, and that's always been my issue with the argument, is the policing of it. Because whenever I have friends like you all that identify Latinx, fine, happy to use it, no problem whatsoever. You got to respect people. That's the number one thing. Respect, right? But I identify as Latina, and I know other folks. I think the main thing, and at least in my perspective, right? This is just me, not everybody. Latinx, it can be really annoying, because I feel what happened in the last couple of years is, a lot of white progressives, the privileged college folk, that are allies to a lot of the work, but also sometimes center themselves in the conversation, or don't leave space for the people. They're outraged on your behalf. It gets really draining and annoying having to shift.
Weaponizing their whiteness.
Right. So it's like, it's very frustrating, because Latinx, be inclusive. I'm like, hold up.
No, bro, you can't say shit.
Yeah. So, if someone identifies as that, respect them, right? I identify as Latina. I don't think anyone should be forced to say Latinx, whatever. Respect what someone identifies as, and just leave room for it. That's really what it comes down to. And not everybody, as a reminder for everyone, Hispanic means your country was colonized from Spain. You guys speak Spanish. That does not include all Latino countries. Latino means you come from a Latin American country, anywhere in the Americas. And then, Latinx can really mean anyone, whatever, for the most part. But those are kind of some of the terms I wanted to go over for everybody. So,
if we give examples, Rosalia is Hispanic, not Latina. So her music, she'll be white people European music, and not Latino music. Just putting that out there.
Hey, right. Rosalia, I remember there was some fire at the Latino billboards, because she got.
How the hell she get reggaeton music? Like, how the hell did she get an award for reggaeton music? No, get me Garay en la Molleta.
Right.
Like, that is a black woman rapper in I believe Dominican Republic. She's dope. Look her up.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. And plus, Rosalia, no offense, I love her. She has a few good songs, but she kind of comes out like the way she does her makeup, and like, Rosalia, she looks kind of like a blow-up doll.
That's all I can hear.
I'm like, why do they sexualize? I'm just like, wow, that's her image. She's like the blow-up doll with the helium voice,
Right.
Sorry, guys.
No, you could say that for a lot of the reggaetoneras right now. Like the white.
Well, no, there's some badass girls out there, like you said. But ladies, I wanted to as we get to our last 10 15 minutes here, I really wanted to once again thank you all for being on here, but also kind of bring it back to why we're here, right? Latinos Unidos started out as an organization for the community, by the community. I was sick and tired of, since I was 14, literally serving on these different local county boards and, participating within democratic politics specifically, just party politics, because that was the part I was most interested in. I know.
Oh, you're doing the God's work.
Yeah. I think that's what aged me so much, y'all. Alyssa, your camera went off for a second, but she'll come back.
Yeah, I need to get to a charger, but I'm on.
Okay. But I really want to see things grow and change, right? Latinos Unidos, I realized we don't even have, as much as I wanted to focus on youth, which has always been my passion, and I've started many internship programs and helped out a lot of my mentees, but I wanted something that focused on our community, right? Latinos. There was not a single caucus that was active in the Clark County Democratic Party specifically for our demographic. And Latinos, immigrants specifically, not just Latinos, but immigrants, represent 1 in 5 in our population here in Nevada, 19 to 20%. So that's a big issue. And that's why, going on to what Alyssa said earlier, oh, hey, Alyssa, I'm glad that we're taking steps now and we're on our way to become the state Latino Democratic Caucus. And I think this podcast is a great vehicle for that, because our friends in Reno, even though I clown on you a lot, and I will continue to do so.
I love you, Northern Nevada.
I love you, Northern and rural Nevada. But hey, I got some jokes.
Wait, look, joke. The wild horses the wild horses thing, like, that is a bill being passed. I don't remember what it is, but it's the one that has the most comments on in the polls. Like,
oh my God,
in
those horse polls. Ones are crazy, because last session when I was working with Senator Spearman, it tripped me out. She was the chair of commerce, and one of the bills that I did not think was gonna, I'm focusing on her personal bills, helping her get co-signers, doing all this other stuff, busy, like, oh my God. And the bill that ends up having one of the most comments that took up my most time, that people wanted to meet with her on constantly, was this horse dental bill.
Oh my God.
I'm so serious. We had a guy with like a horse skull through the legislature. Everybody leave in the comments if you remember the horse skull guy and his name, because that was interesting. He was very nice, by the way, short little chaparrito white guy. So I want to bring it back. So Latinos Unidos is here serving that purpose to engage our community, connect our community, and hopefully on a statewide level very soon start doing more engagement opportunities for our gente in the rurals. You are not alone. Don't worry. We got you. And in Reno, so I really appreciate you guys coming on. I think one important thing, I guess, that personifies kind of, or summarizes everything we're doing, is I think we're trying to put an end to mariachi politics. Term, mariachi politics, that tokenization where they show up with the mariachi, you know what I'm talking about.
Horses.
If you've been to a Hispanic event, well, see, that's a little different. So I want to give a shout out really quick. Assemblyman Edgar Flores, thank you for everything you're doing with the Hispanic Caucus to bring our names out there.
I didn't even know.
He did a horse event.
Those cabalgatas for the elections, huh?
Yes. Huh. And he's so proud of his heritage. He's doing the Lord's work, right? He's woke. He's smart.
The Edgar Flores building on Eastern and Bonanza.
Hey, if you want to sponsor this episode, Flores and Gonzalez Law, just saying. So ladies, I really think we want to end this mariachi politics, the tokenization, because like we brought up earlier, not everyone's Mexican. And I think we're losing a lot of ground and having serious issues with a lot of these other communities, specifically Central American, specifically Venezuelan, and specifically Cuban, of course, which I know there's the most stereotypes about. But don't worry, as you guys listen to more of this podcast in the coming episodes, I'm going to learn you something. So, ladies, what do you guys think about maybe some meaningful steps that we could take at the state level to address, more of that multiculturalism and the communication, making it effective and culturally competent? Because I don't know if either one of you wants to get into just that, or also the literature issue, which I know that could be its own episode. So would you like to go first, Alyssa?
I'll let Yesenia go first, actually.
Okay, pues Yesenia, I know she's prepared. She got the receipts and everything.
Let me take honestly, let's just start with the Spanish literature first of all. Okay. And I'm going directly with Spanish language because that's one of the ones that the Democratic Party purports to always be backing.
So, ¿lo puedes decir en español? Disculpa. Sí. Acabo de realizar, estábamos hablando en inglés por mucho tiempo, pero los tres tenemos que practicar un poco. So, you know, forgive us.
Durante las elecciones,
sí,
una de las cosas que siempre están preocupándose es supuestamente el lenguaje en español. pero nunca hacen nada. Yo estaba allí y todos los viernes, por un año, les dije, necesito esto en español. ¿Va a estar esto en español? ¿Va a estar eso en español? ¿Va a estar eso en español?
La literatura y todo lo que estás dejando cuando vas puerta a puerta a la gente, ¿verdad?
Y todo lo que ustedes vieron aquí en las elecciones en español, si no fuera por gente como yo y otros de mis compañeros que estuvieron ahí en los meetings todos los viernes diciendo, ¿va a estar esto en español? No lo hubieran hecho.
Sí.
No lo hubieran hecho. A nadie se le pasó ni hacer un tweet en español, ni hacer un tweet en otro lenguaje.
Yeah, but they did a lot of Latino outreach events via Zoom and stuff that doesn't connect with them at all. Can you elaborate a little more, please?
Okay, so
dinos ella tuvo que luchar por mucho tiempo y esto es muy común para ustedes que no han participado en campañas como voluntad o como, un trabajador. Lo que hacen muchas veces, ellos tienen prioridades, ¿verdad? Y la prioridad número 1 es informar, educar y obviamente hacer que la gente van a votar, ¿verdad? Para la comunidad latina, para las comunidades asiáticos que hay aquí, ellos siempre dicen, bueno, queremos ser inclusivos. Vamos a tener estos eventos y obviamente miran a los únicos latinos que trabajan para la campaña y dicen, ok, tú vas a hacer la translación, tú vas a planear el evento y no te vamos a dar recursos. O mira, aquí hay $100. A ver qué puedes hacer con eso, ¿verdad?
Te dieron dinero a ti, like they gave you money.
Girl, I wish. Nunca me han dado dinero a mí. Yo tuve que pagar de mi propia bolsillo para hacer muchas de mis cosas.
So, trabajando para el partido no fue nada fácil. Y ya me habían dicho que nadie que vive aquí trabaja para el partido, porque desafortunadamente, como estaban haciendo las cosas, es mucho el trabajo y este tipo de trabajo se ha hecho para gente que tiene recursos y mucho dinero, porque hasta hace 5 años, este trabajo que yo estaba haciendo de field organizer o creo que le dicen organizador de
la comunidad,
de fondo o algo así.
Yeah.
Me dijeron que solamente eran niños gringos. De dinero, de papi y de mami, que tenían recursos, que iban a la escuela, que tenían acceso a ir a moverse a un lugar por 6 meses.
Fair, nada más muy rápido, nada más quiero decir, no todos, había muchos, pero de otros estados.
Pero de eso este trabajo es para gente que ya tiene recursos. No está hecho para gente sin recursos ni sin educación política. Porque gente como yo llega al lugar y sin saber lo usan. Y a mí me usaron mucho, desafortunadamente, pero yo también los usé.
Bueno, hay que aprender.
How to use the platform. De todos modos, estábamos haciendo, durante COVID, estaba todo hecho virtual. Yo sé que una de mis amigas que estaba en las coaliciones, en la coalición latino, ella peleó y hizo un esfuerzo muy grande para que estuviéramos en persona, para que fuéramos a hacer cosas en persona. Desafortunadamente eso no pasó. Hasta 5 días antes de las elecciones, que la directora nos dijo, tenemos 200,000 casas, que gente en el East Side, que tenemos que ir a tocar porque no tenemos sus contactos. Y mi pregunta fue, ¿desde cuándo supieron esto? Right? Y me ignoraron. So, yo me la pasé los últimos 5 días de las elecciones tocando puertas, porque para mí eso es lo que es lo importante. Y para mí el candidato no era importante, ni la vicepresidenta, porque para mí lo importante era que nuestra comunidad usara su voz. Necesitábamos sacar a Trump. Y llegando otra vez a cómo el partido usa a la comunidad latina, tiene que cambiar, porque es el mismo en el que también, like, the black voting block, quote unquote,
right,
it's racist. Todo es bien racista. Al pensar que los latinos somos todos igual, que tenemos las mismas preocupaciones, no, o sea, para nosotros que somos diferentes, que somos latinos o latinx, sabemos cuáles son las diferencias.
Sí, pero
Ellos nos ven igual.
Parte del problema, ¿no piensas que es que no hay suficiente consultantes latinos? Obviamente, o de
Exacto.
aquí, locales.
Yes.
Pero, ¿sabes qué? Tienes mucha razón. Todo lo que dijiste es verdad. Pero tenemos que enfocar también, estamos en un punto de cambio. Por eso tenemos este podcast. Por eso necesito que lo compartes con tu familia, tu vecino, tu abuelita, tu hijo, tu hija, tu sobrino, tu primo.
Porque tenemos que seguir aquí. Por eso yo sigo aquí. Yo no voy a dejar que estas experiencias que tuve me detengan y paren el trabajo que yo estoy haciendo comunitario.
Tenemos que hacerlo.
Porque ellos no saben. They don't know any better.
Pero van a aprender y ya no van a tener excusa, ¿ok?
They need to learn. Desafortunadamente necesitan gente como nosotros que para ellos no nos dejamos.
Sí. Y por eso estoy feliz tenerte aquí y también Alyssa. Antes que llego al fin y los comentarios finales, quería preguntarte. Hablé con Yesenia sobre su experiencia trabajando para el partido y el pasado y cómo interactuamos con la comunidad y por eso estamos en la situación que estamos en, ¿verdad? Hay muchos que piensan que la política no es para ellos, que nadie les habla, si no necesitan algo, esto y lo otro. Pero tenemos esperanza, hay una dirección en que podemos ir y Alyssa, estábamos hablando de eso estas últimas semanas. Quiero que explicas un poco de tu idea de lo que podemos hacer Latinos Unidos como una organización, como un podcast, con nuestra oportunidad de hablar con líderes en el estado. ¿Qué podemos hacer para motivar la comunidad y qué podemos cambiar o hacer para que la comunidad participe más?
Sí, yo estoy de acuerdo con todo lo que ha dicho Yesenia. Yo he visto esos esfuerzos de nuestra comunidad latina trabajando con el partido demócrata aquí en Nevada. And I think that hiring, like Yesenia said, local Latinx people is obviously, for us, it's obvious, but we need to figure out why they're not doing that. Is it because, leadership doesn't prioritize the East Side or Latinos of all different backgrounds? Because we know Latinos, like you mentioned, are not a monolith. We're everywhere. So especially looking ahead to 2024 and thinking about, why did Bernie Sanders do so well within the Latinx, Latino community?
Despite leadership.
Yeah, exactly. And what is it that's resonating? And we know what's resonating. It's higher wages, healthcare. That's what Latinos care about. This is what Latinos are so family focused that of course that higher wages are going to support all of those mothers, a lot of the time single mothers, maybe new Americans or immigrants that are trying to just support their families. And it's just, there's just so many, I feel like I just agree with everything that Yesenia said. And I think that we need to actually have a Nevada State Democratic Party that's informed by the people on the ground and start doing work from the ground up rather than the top down. And we all know that. I feel like
they need to know that.
Yeah, need to know that.
So, sure. Alyssa, actually on that, I remember when we were talking recently, I brought up, or you had the idea of doing like listening sessions and making sure that we evaluate interest in the community. I just want to know, fun statistic here, of the top 5 issues Latino voters had in 2020 in all of some of the key states, which was Arizona, Florida. They actually included Nevada because of our high Latino population. Guess what? You know where in the top 5 issues immigration fell? It didn't. It fell number 6. Our top 5 issues were all economic healthcare based. We care about the economy, and people don't give us credit for that. So, Alyssa, maybe you mentioned that listening tour. What's a tangible next step or some tangible things that we as an organization should aim for, or that our listeners maybe might want to participate in? And I have some ideas for you guys at the end, but I would really love to hear Alyssa's perspective because she's doing so much work this session and has really been involved. She just ran for party leadership as well and has that experience working with multiple caucuses on those forums. So what do you think our next steps should be?
I think it's like what you mentioned earlier. It's going to the people's doors, bringing the party to their doorstep, because it sounds it sounds so simple and so easy, and we know that it's not easy work, but it is, I feel, a very simple solution to close those knowledge gaps. So number one is to close the knowledge gap between the party and our community. Why, like I mentioned already, why did Bernie Sanders do so well? Because of those things that he ran on: the Medicare for all, the $15 minimum wage, the canceling of student loan debt, all of these things that would actually help our community and
Mm-hmm.
ensure that we could thrive. It feels like I feel like a broken record. I feel like I'm saying the same
I
things
think
over and
we all
over,
do.
but yeah, it's like, for me, I never think about my specific situation, because I'm a very privileged person in a way in which, I came from a dual income household, and my parents thankfully gained their citizenship at a younger age than other people's parents. And I just know I come from a bit of a more privileged space. So I think, I don't usually think about myself when I'm thinking about politics. I always think about my grandma. She raised four children as an undocumented person, a single mom, and she worked as a housekeeper, and so did so many other of my family members. So I think, how do we support our folks in ensuring that they're getting access to health care, to their insurance, so that they can actually not just survive, but actually just live their life and just be a little bit more comfortable with every day. So those are the things I think about. What are those real changes that need to be made or where can we find these people? Like, for example, I remember during the caucus, we had a voting location, which was awesome, in Cardenas, on East Bonanza. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a great approach. That's just one example of something that the Nevada State Democratic Party did well. They put it there.
Right.
And, where that's where my grandma shopped.
Man,
That's where my
it
entire
was
family
it was a
shopped.
fight.
And they're all mixed status, and they're all varying incomes. My mom, before the pandemic, and they let her go because of COVID reasons, she was leadership at a local hospital here in North Las Vegas, the only hospital that's public in North Las Vegas. She was leadership there, but she shops at Cardenas, and so does my grandma. And it's just like, thinking about that. How do we go to places like Cardenas? Another place my parents go often are like the recreation centers, because they have children, so they
Yes.
their kids there. So how and I Another thing I think the Democratic Party did well is having 24-hour polling locations, because um, my grandma, for example, works from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. And so she needed that 24-hour polling location to make her life a little bit easier.
During the caucus.
Yeah. Hmm.
That was fun. I was on the strip during those 24-hour caucuses. That was
Yeah.
hilarious.
We need
So
that
I think that
access.
It was a
the party,
lot of ladies, a lot of
yeah,
mujeres that never knew how to vote before, that were registering to vote same day and voting.
Mm-hmm.
yep. Because this is anecdotal, but in my family, I would say 50% of the women work in the service industry, as either a quarter of them are housekeepers, and then the other quarter are like floral. What are those called?
Florist.
They're florists, but they're all working in the casino. So how do we talk to those folks? And I feel like another place that's common for our community to be is doctors' offices, because whether you're older, younger, mixed status, a lot of times folks are at doctors' offices. So how do we work with
Las botanicas.
healthcare? Yeah, the healthcare system, to also reach out to our community. So yeah, the Nevada State Democratic Party is not all bad at all. No.
Right. I know. Look, I know we've been rough.
I'm not bashing.
But it's important to acknowledge what's happened. We're debriefing
Yeah,
2020, where we're at and where we need to go. And I think you did a good job of kind of tying that all in, because they did do some wonderful things. And I could go off for hours on that, but I'm not a kiss ass.
Yeah.
And
No, I agree.
yeah.
There improvements 1000% need to be made. But then, like I mentioned, there's these things that have begun. They have begun these initiatives, and then we just need to expand on those and prioritize those.
Right. Absolutely.
Those are just my ideas.
Thank you. No, I think you have a good point. And the doctor's office thing, that actually gave me some pause. I think that's a very useful tool that I haven't fully utilized. The other ones I think us in this space are familiar with, but that's a good idea. So I wanted to really just wrap it up by saying thank you, ladies. I think, there's a lot more that needs to be done. There's a lot of action, a lot of us organizers. I want to reach out to everybody who has either volunteered or participated and then just said, oh, screw this. This is toxic. I want you to know, look, in the past, we've been put up against the wall because we are tired of helping them, and they keep making the same mistake, which is exhausting because you can't defend an entity that you're trying to help, that you think is the better option. If it's a difficult cycle for a lot of people. But look, I want you to know the reason I do Latinos Unidos, the reason I've been involved all this time, the reason I'm here with these two badass Latinas is because state and local is where it's at. You don't have to get involved in that nasty ass national politics, because really, until we get money out of politics and we end Citizens United, it's going to be quite the uphill battle. Not to say that if more of us participate in petitions and actually called our legislators, we couldn't actually get some shit done. But I know a lot of people find that draining, what have you. But state and local, at the very, very least, there's different levels. We're not here to guilt you because you weren't at the People's Summit this weekend or whatever. We're here to give you an olive branch, a platform, different ways to engage, whether that be at the Latinos Carne Asada later this summer, due to the graciousness of some of our sponsors. But
name dropping.
Yeah, we're going to do a Carne Asada this summer to really bring back one of our most popular events ever, and also to come together as a community again once more of us have been vaccinated. Vacúnate, por favor. Hay muchos lugares donde pueden ir. But also, I think, it's your city council person, county commission, with Latinos Unidos, we still got time. There's things we could do. This is airing on May Day, a day that's so important to all the workers, all the people, like your family in the service industry. Latinos, that's one of the most popular sectors we work in, which is why we're disproportionately affected during economic downturns like the pandemic and more exposed to the virus.
Yeah, all of the women in my family are domestic workers.
There you go, and I think it's really important we acknowledge, there's things you can do. There's still time in the legislative session. So if you follow and like our page, you can see, we're telling people, hey, this bill's being heard here. Talk to me directly. Please email me, text me, reach out Latinos Unidos, and we'll give you the information and maybe help you with the template on how to submit testimony. You have a great template as well through your organization. And yeah, the county commission letter, there's so many opportunities. So the best thing you could do, start off with listening, then maybe go to an event. Yeah. Make sure you're registered to vote, because that's how we stop all this bad stuff. Make sure you vote. And the more we vote, the more power we have, the more change we make. So I appreciate all of you for coming on. Alyssa Cortes, Yesenia Garay.
Moya Garay.
Maura Garay.
Moya Garay.
Or Yesenia, the badass, dope-ass activist. That's what I'm going to stick with. Pero a todos, muchas gracias por escucharnos. Muchas gracias por participar. Y chao, cuídense.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys.